When Marcus, a young boy with big dreams of acting, is unfairly denied a role in his school play, he believes his shot at the stage is over. But an unexpected encounter with a famous actor shifts everything. As he navigates the highs and lows of chasing his dreams, will Marcus find the spotlight he's always longed for? Before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know where you're watching from. Let's dive in. Marcus sat on the edge of his bed, a worn-out script in his hands, his heart pounding with excitement. The sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of his small room, casting a warm glow on the scattered papers and acting books strewn across his desk. His mother's voice called up from the kitchen downstairs, urging him to come down for breakfast, but Marcus was too deep in thought to hear her. Today was the day, auditions for the school play. He had waited for this moment for weeks, practicing his lines over and over, perfecting every gesture, every expression. He had played this scene out in his head countless times, imagining the applause, the spotlight, and the thrill of performing in front of an audience. Ever since he was a little boy, Marcus had been fascinated by acting. While other kids spent their afternoons playing sports or video games, Marcus would sit in front of the TV mimicking the actors, trying to capture the emotions and movements that made their characters so real. His mother often found him practicing in front of the mirror, reciting lines from his favorite movies, or putting on little shows for his family. It was clear to everyone that Marcus had a gift, a natural ability to step into the shoes of others and bring their stories to life. Despite his talent, Marcus had always been shy at school, never one to stand out or draw attention to himself. But when the school announced auditions for the upcoming play, something clicked inside him. This was his chance to prove himself, to show everyone that he was more than just the quiet boy who sat in the back of the class. He had worked tirelessly, memorizing the script, practicing late into the night, determined to be the best actor they had ever seen. As he finally tore his eyes away from the script and looked at the clock, he realized it was time to leave. He grabbed his backpack, stuffed the script inside, and hurried downstairs. His mother was waiting for him in the kitchen, her face beaming with pride. She had always supported his passion for acting, even though life hadn't always been easy for them. As a single mother working 2 jobs, she had done everything she could to make sure Marcus had the opportunities to pursue his dreams, even if it meant sacrificing her own. "Ready for your big day?" she asked, handing him a piece of toast as he rushed to the door. Marcus smiled, trying to hide the nerves that were slowly building up inside him. "Yeah, I think so," he replied, though his voice betrayed the excitement and anxiety he was feeling. "You've got this, baby," his mother said, giving him a quick hug. "Just remember what we always say, believe in yourself and the rest will follow." He nodded, repeating the familiar words in his mind as he walked out the door. It was something his mother had told him from the time he was little, whenever he faced a challenge or felt like giving up. And today, more than ever, Marcus needed to hold on to that belief. The school auditorium was buzzing with energy when Marcus arrived. Students were scattered across the room, rehearsing their lines, chatting nervously with friends, and waiting for their turn to audition. Marcus stood in the back, clutching his script tightly, watching as one by one his classmates stepped up to perform. Some were confident, others hesitant, but everyone seemed to have their own unique style. Marcus couldn't help but feel a mix of admiration and fear as he watched them. Would he be good enough? Would the teachers see what he had to offer? As his name was called, Marcus took a deep breath and stepped forward, his palms sweaty and his heart racing. The lights on the stage were bright, almost blinding, and he could feel the weight of the room's attention on him. But this was his moment, the one he had been waiting for. He glanced at the panel of teachers sitting at the front, their faces blank and unreadable, and tried to calm his nerves. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could even begin, one of the teachers raised a hand to stop him. "Marcus, we've already cast the main roles," she said, her tone dismissive. "There's no need to audition." Marcus blinked, confused. "But I've been practicing. I thought we were still auditioning today." The teacher shook her head, barely looking up from her clipboard. "We've already decided. There's no place for you in this play." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the stomach. No place for him. He had been working so hard, preparing for this moment, and now he wasn't even going to get the chance to try? He stood there, frozen, not knowing what to say or how to respond. He could feel the stares of the other students, some of them sympathetic, others indifferent. His dream, the one thing he had been looking forward to for so long, was slipping away right in front of him. "But I've been practicing," Marcus said again, his voice smaller this time, as if hoping there had been some kind of mistake. The teacher sighed, clearly impatient. "Look, Marcus, you're just not what we're looking for. Maybe next time, okay?" Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. He wanted to argue, to demand an explanation, but the words wouldn't come. He turned and walked off the stage, his head down, his heart heavy. He didn't understand. Why hadn't they given him a chance? Was it something he had done wrong? Or was it something more than that? Something he couldn't control? As he made his way out of the auditorium, the disappointment weighed on him like a physical burden. He had never felt so invisible, so small. His dreams of being on stage, of proving himself, seemed to crumble in that moment. He found a quiet spot outside the school, sitting on a bench under a tree, replaying the scene in his head. He had been so ready, so prepared. But none of that seemed to matter now. Little did Marcus know that someone had been watching his audition from the back of the room. A tall figure stood in the shadows, observing the interaction with quiet intensity. Jeremiah Hayes, a renowned actor who had come to the school for a special event, had witnessed everything. And in that moment, he knew that Marcus's story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Marcus sat alone on the bench outside the school, still holding the script that had become so familiar to him over the past weeks. His fingers absent-mindedly traced the creases on the worn pages, as if he could somehow rewrite the ending to his day with just a touch. The faint sounds of laughter and conversation from other students drifted through the courtyard, but Marcus felt a million miles away. His mind was swirling with confusion and frustration, trying to make sense of what had just happened in the auditorium. He had given everything to prepare for this audition. He had believed, known that he was ready. Yet here he was, denied a chance without even being allowed to perform. His chest tightened as the teacher's words echoed in his mind. "You're just not what we're looking for." But why? Why wasn't he what they were looking for? He had practiced just like everyone else, maybe even more. Was it his appearance? Was it because he was different from the others? Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something unfair had happened, and that feeling gnawed at him. As he sat there, lost in thought, he didn't notice someone approaching him until a shadow fell over the bench. Startled, Marcus looked up to see a tall man standing in front of him, his face instantly familiar but impossible to believe in this context. Jeremiah Hayes, the famous actor, was right in front of him. Marcus blinked, not trusting his eyes. Jeremiah Hayes was a household name, a black actor who had risen to fame for his roles in major films and his powerful stage performances. His presence was magnetic. He had an air of confidence and wisdom that came from years of experience in the industry. Marcus had seen him in countless movies and, like many aspiring actors, had looked up to him as a source of inspiration. But what was he doing here? "Hey," Jeremiah said, his deep voice breaking the silence. He smiled warmly, but there was a seriousness in his gaze. "Mind if I sit?" Marcus could only nod, his voice stuck somewhere between awe and disbelief. Jeremiah took a seat on the bench beside him, stretching his legs out as if he had all the time in the world. For a moment, neither of them spoke, and Marcus's mind raced to figure out what was happening. "I saw your audition," Jeremiah finally said, turning to look at Marcus. "Well, what should have been your audition?" Marcus's face flushed with embarrassment. Of all the people to have witnessed his moment of failure, it had to be Jeremiah Hayes? He wanted to explain, to apologize for, well, he wasn't even sure what he was apologizing for. But before he could say anything, Jeremiah continued. "You've got a gift, you know that?" Marcus blinked, caught off guard. "A gift?" he echoed, his voice laced with doubt. "But I didn't even get to perform." Jeremiah nodded thoughtfully, as if he understood all too well. "I've been around long enough to recognize potential when I see it. I saw it in the way you walked on stage, the way you held yourself. Even before you said a word, it was clear that you were ready." Marcus's heart swelled with both pride and confusion. This man, this actor he had admired for so long, was telling him he had potential? It felt like a dream, something too good to be real. But at the same time, it didn't make sense. If he had potential, why had the teacher brushed him off so easily? Why hadn't they even let him try? I don't understand, Marcus admitted, his voice small. They didn't even give me a chance. They said I wasn't what they were looking for. Jeremiah sighed, leaning back on the bench. That happens sometimes. More often than you'd think. The world isn't always fair, Marcus, especially in this industry. Sometimes people make decisions based on things that have nothing to do with talent. But that doesn't mean you're any less capable. It just means you've got to find your own path. Marcus listened carefully, trying to absorb Jeremiah's words. It was a harsh truth, but somehow, hearing it from someone like Jeremiah made it easier to bear. This man had probably faced his own struggles, his own rejections, but he had still made it. He was living proof that it was possible to succeed, even when the odds seemed stacked against you. You know, Jeremiah continued, when I was starting out, I faced a lot of closed doors. People told me I wasn't the right fit, that I didn't have the right look or background. It was hard, but I didn't let those rejections define me. I kept pushing, kept working on my craft, and eventually the right doors opened. Marcus looked down at the script in his hands, feeling a spark of hope begin to flicker inside him. But how do you keep going when it feels like no one believes in you? He asked, voicing the question that had been weighing on him since the moment he walked off the stage. Jeremiah smiled, his eyes softening. First, you have to believe in yourself. You have to know deep down that you've got something to offer. And second, you find people who do believe in you, even if it's just one person. Sometimes, that's all it takes to keep you moving forward. For a moment, Marcus was quiet, letting the weight of Jeremiah's words settle in. Could he still believe in himself after what had just happened? Could he find the strength to keep pursuing his dream, even when others didn't see his worth? He didn't know the answers yet, but Jeremiah's presence made him feel like it was possible. I'm not just here to talk, Jeremiah said, breaking the silence once more. I'm here because I see something in you, Marcus, and I want to help you see it too. Marcus's eyes widened. Help me? Jeremiah nodded, his expression serious now. I've got some free time while I'm in town, and I'd like to work with you. Help you refine your skills, build your confidence. If you're interested, that is. For a moment, Marcus could hardly believe what he was hearing. Jeremiah Hayes, a famous actor, wanted to mentor him? It felt surreal, like something out of a movie. But as the reality of the offer sank in, a wave of excitement and gratitude washed over him. This wasn't just a second chance. This was an opportunity that most people only dreamed of. I'd love that, Marcus finally managed to say, his voice trembling with emotion. Jeremiah smiled and stood up. Good, then it's settled. We'll start tomorrow. As he walked away, leaving Marcus sitting on the bench in stunned silence, Marcus realized that the day hadn't ended in failure after all. What had seemed like the end of his dream was, in fact, just the beginning of something much bigger. Jeremiah had seen something in him, something worth nurturing, and that was more than enough to make Marcus believe in himself again. With a new sense of purpose, Marcus stood up, gripping the script tightly. Tomorrow, his journey would continue, and this time, he wouldn't be alone. The sun had barely risen the next morning when Marcus woke up, unable to sleep from the excitement of what was about to happen. The events of the previous day still felt like a dream. Jeremiah Hayes, one of the most successful actors in the world, had offered to mentor him. The disbelief Marcus had felt at first was now replaced with a sense of nervous excitement. This was a second chance, an opportunity that didn't come to many people, and he wasn't about to waste it. As Marcus got ready, his mother noticed something different in his mood. She hadn't asked him about the audition after he came home looking dejected the day before, but now there was a quiet determination in his face. You're up early today? His mom said as she set down a plate of scrambled eggs in front of him. You ready for school? Yeah, but I'm not going straight to school, Marcus replied, trying to contain his excitement. I'm meeting someone first. His mom raised her eyebrows. Oh? Who are you meeting? Marcus hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to explain. You're not going to believe it, but I'm meeting Jeremiah Hayes. His mom's face showed both shock and disbelief. Jeremiah Hayes? The actor? How on earth did that happen? Marcus quickly filled her in on everything that had happened after the audition. The rejection, the conversation with Jeremiah, and the unbelievable offer to be mentored by him. His mother listened with wide eyes, her expression shifting from concern to pride. When Marcus finished the story, she took a deep breath and smiled warmly. "You know, Marcus, sometimes life works in mysterious ways," she said. "Yesterday didn't go the way you expected, but maybe this was meant to happen all along. I'm proud of you for not giving up." Marcus nodded, feeling a surge of confidence. "I won't, Mom. I'm going to make the most of this." After breakfast, Marcus grabbed his backpack and headed out the door, practically buzzing with energy. As he walked to the small community center where Jeremiah had asked him to meet, Marcus couldn't help but wonder what the day would hold. He knew it wouldn't be easy. Nothing worth having ever was, but he was ready to learn, to grow, and to prove himself. When he arrived at the center, Jeremiah was already there, casually leaning against a brick wall, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses to stay under the radar. He gave Marcus a nod and a smile as the young boy approached, his calm demeanor instantly putting Marcus at ease. "You ready to get to work?" Jeremiah asked. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, I'm ready." "Good," Jeremiah said, standing up straight. "Let's head inside." They walked into the center's small, dimly lit theater space. The room was quiet, with rows of empty seats facing a modest stage. The faint smell of dust and old wood filled the air, giving the place a feeling of history, of stories that had been told on that stage before. It was the perfect place to begin Marcus's new chapter. Jeremiah led Marcus up onto the stage, standing in the center where the lights would shine. "First things first," he said, looking around the space as if measuring its energy. "Acting isn't just about saying lines or playing a character. It's about understanding yourself and the world around you. You've got to connect with what's real before you can bring it to life on stage." Marcus nodded, taking in every word. He had never thought about acting this way before. It had always seemed like stepping into someone else's shoes. But Jeremiah was talking about something deeper, something more personal. "Let's start with a simple exercise," Jeremiah said, his tone instructive yet encouraging. "I want you to close your eyes and breathe. Don't think about anything else. Just focus on your breathing." Marcus did as he was told, closing his eyes and taking a slow, deep breath. At first, it felt strange, but as he continued, he noticed a shift. His mind, which had been racing with excitement and nerves, began to calm. The sounds of the room faded away, leaving only the steady rhythm of his breath. "Good." Jeremiah's voice broke through the silence. "Now, think about a moment in your life when you felt something real. Joy, sadness, fear, anything. Let that emotion fill you, and when you're ready, open your eyes and speak. Don't worry about what you're going to say. Just let the emotion guide you." Marcus took another deep breath, his thoughts drifting back to the previous day's rejection. He remembered the crushing feeling of standing on that stage, wanting so badly to prove himself and being dismissed without a second thought. It stung, even now. But as the emotion swelled inside him, something else came with it. A sense of resilience, a desire to keep fighting. He opened his eyes and looked at Jeremiah. "I'm not giving up," Marcus said quietly, his voice trembling slightly. "I'm going to show them what I can do. No matter how many times they say no, I'm going to keep going." Jeremiah nodded approvingly, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "That's what I'm talking about. Acting isn't about pretending, it's about truth. You've got to bring your truth to every character you play. People can tell when something is real, and that's what moves them." Marcus felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of understanding that went beyond the technical aspects of acting. Jeremiah was teaching him something far more valuable than memorizing lines or perfecting stage presence. He was teaching him how to feel. For the next few hours, they worked through a series of exercises, each one designed to help Marcus connect with his emotions and translate them into his performance. Jeremiah's guidance was patient and thoughtful, and with every new challenge, Marcus felt himself growing more confident, more capable. He learned to tap into his own experiences, to use his life as a well of inspiration for the characters he would portray. But it wasn't just about emotions. Jeremiah also taught Marcus about the physicality of acting, how to use his body to convey a character's feelings and intentions, how to control his movements, and how to maintain his presence on stage. Marcus soaked it all in, his passion for acting burning brighter with each passing moment. As the day drew to a close, Marcus found himself exhausted but exhilarated. He had never worked this hard before, but it felt good, like he was finally taking a step towards something real, something that mattered. "You did good today," Jeremiah said as they packed up to leave. "But remember, this is just the beginning. The road ahead won't be easy. There'll be more rejections, more challenges, but if you keep putting in the work, you'll get there." Marcus nodded, feeling a sense of determination solidify within him. "I won't stop," he said, his voice steady. Jeremiah smiled. "That's what I like to hear. We'll meet again tomorrow, same time." As Marcus left the community center, his mind buzzed with everything he had learned. The world felt different now, more open, more full of possibility. He knew that this journey wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, he truly believed he could succeed. That night, as he lay in bed, replaying the day's events in his head, Marcus smiled to himself. He was no longer the boy who had been rejected at the school play. He was an actor in the making, a young man with a fire inside him that nothing could extinguish. And with Jeremiah by his side, he knew he was on the right path. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and Marcus was ready for all of it. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of rehearsals, lessons, and emotional growth for Marcus. Every morning, he would meet Jeremiah at the community center, ready to push himself further than he ever thought possible. Jeremiah's mentoring was not just about teaching Marcus the art of acting. It was about shaping him into someone who could stand tall despite the odds. Through each exercise, Marcus learned more about himself, his strengths, his vulnerabilities, and his ability to connect with others through storytelling. But alongside the progress, there was always a sense of looming pressure. Jeremiah had been pushing him harder in the last few days, hinting that something big was coming. Marcus didn't know what it was, but he could feel it in the way Jeremiah pushed him to dig deeper into his emotions, to commit more fully to every scene. His performances were becoming more raw, more real, and he began to believe that maybe, just maybe, he had what it took to be an actor. Then, one day, after an especially grueling session, Jeremiah pulled Marcus aside. "I've been talking to some people I know in the industry," Jeremiah said, his tone serious. "There's an audition coming up in the city for a new TV show. They're looking for fresh faces, young talent, kids who have that spark. I think you're ready." Marcus's heart skipped a beat. He had expected something big, but this was beyond what he could have imagined. A professional audition? In the city? His mind raced with a mix of excitement and fear. "Me? Audition for a TV show?" Marcus asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "But I've never done anything like that before." Jeremiah placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, his gaze steady and confident. "You've got what it takes, Marcus. You've been putting in the work, and now it's time to put yourself out there. This could be the opportunity that changes everything for you." Marcus felt a rush of adrenaline, but the fear still lingered. The thought of standing in front of casting directors competing with kids who might have far more experience than he did made his stomach churn. What if he wasn't good enough? What if, once again, he faced rejection? But Jeremiah seemed to read his thoughts. "Look, I know it's scary. I've been there. But you can't let fear control you. You've been through rejection before, and it didn't stop you. This is your chance to prove that you belong on that stage, no matter what anyone else says." Marcus took a deep breath, trying to let Jeremiah's words sink in. He had come so far already, overcoming obstacles he never thought he could. And now, he was being offered a chance to take a step toward his dream. A step he couldn't have imagined just weeks ago. He knew deep down that if he didn't take this opportunity, he would regret it forever. "Okay," Marcus said, his voice more confident than he felt. "I'll do it." Jeremiah grinned, a look of pride flashing across his face. "That's what I want to hear. The audition is in 3 days. We'll use the time to get you ready." The next few days were a blur of preparation. Jeremiah drilled Marcus on everything they had been working on: the emotional exercises, the physicality of the performance, and the importance of staying in character even when the pressure was on. Marcus practiced relentlessly, using every spare moment to rehearse the lines for the audition scene Jeremiah had given him. It was a challenging piece, filled with emotional complexity, but Marcus threw himself into it with everything he had. The night before the audition, Marcus lay awake in bed, his mind racing with a mix of excitement and anxiety. What if he forgot his lines? What if the casting directors didn't like him? What if, after all this preparation, it wasn't enough? But then he thought about everything Jeremiah had taught him, about the importance of truth, of bringing his real emotions to the stage. It wasn't about perfection. It was about connecting with the audience, about showing them who he was through the character. With that thought in mind, Marcus finally drifted off to sleep, his nerves settling into a quiet determination. The morning of the audition, Marcus felt the weight of the day pressing down on him as he stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his shirt and making sure he looked the part. His mom had been supportive, reminding him to stay calm and to trust in himself. But even her comforting words couldn't completely erase the butterflies in his stomach. When Marcus arrived at the audition location in the heart of the city, the building seemed imposing, towering above him like a monument to the dreams of countless hopeful actors. Inside, the waiting room was filled with kids just like him, some younger, some older, all holding scripts and nervously going over their lines. The air was thick with tension, and Marcus couldn't help but feel out of place among so many experienced-looking performers. Jeremiah had come with him, offering words of encouragement and calm. "Remember what we talked about. This is just another performance. Don't think about the competition. Focus on the character, on the story. You've got this." Marcus nodded, trying to calm his racing heart. But as he looked around the room at the other kids, his insecurities started creeping in. Some of them looked like they had been doing this for years. They knew the drill, how to stand, how to hold themselves with confidence, as if this were just another audition for them. But Marcus reminded himself that he wasn't here to compete with them. He was here to show the casting directors his truth. He had prepared for this, and now it was time to give it his all. When his name was finally called, Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline rush through him. He walked into the audition room, trying to keep his breathing steady. But the bright lights and the stern faces of the casting directors made his nerves spike again. He took his place in the center of the room, clutching the script in his hand. He could feel the eyes of the casting panel on him, waiting. The silence was heavy, but Marcus took a deep breath and closed his eyes for a moment, centering himself. Jeremiah's words echoed in his mind. It's not about perfection, it's about truth. He opened his eyes and began the scene, letting the emotions flow through him. The character was dealing with loss, a deep sense of pain and isolation, and Marcus connected to that feeling in a way he hadn't expected. He let the vulnerability show, allowing himself to fully inhabit the character's struggles. As he delivered the lines, he felt the rawness of the emotion take over, as if it were his own. The room was quiet as he finished. For a moment, Marcus stood there, feeling the intensity of what he had just done, unsure of how it had been received. He glanced at the casting directors, their faces unreadable, and suddenly felt the weight of the uncertainty settle on him. But he had done it. He had given it everything he had. "Thank you," one of the directors said, marking something on her clipboard. "We'll be in touch." Marcus left the room, his heart pounding. He couldn't read their reactions, and the uncertainty gnawed at him. But as he walked out into the waiting room and saw Jeremiah's proud smile, a small flicker of hope began to grow inside him. "How'd it go?" Jeremiah asked. Marcus exhaled, trying to find the words. "I think I did okay. I gave it everything." Jeremiah nodded, his smile widening. "That's all that matters. Now we wait." As they left the audition building, Marcus couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and anticipation. The next few days would be agonizing, waiting for a call that could change everything. But no matter what happened, Marcus knew he had taken a huge step forward. He had faced his fear, and that in itself was a victory. This wasn't the end of his journey. It was only the beginning. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Click on the video now to watch. We appreciate your support, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.